Our big picture question is, why did Jesus perform miracles? Well, Jesus performed miracles to glorify God, to show He is the Son of God, and to care for people. Our key passage is from the book of Psalms, chapter 40, verse 5. Many, Lord my God, are the wonders you have done, the things you planned for us. None can compare with you. Were I to speak and tell of your deeds, they would be too many to declare. Our Bible story today is about how Jesus miraculously fed a crowd with 5 loaves and just 2 fish. Enjoy!
Jesus' disciples had been hard at work. They had been healing people and teaching them. So many people came and went that the disciples did not even have time to eat. So Jesus said to them, "Come with me. Let's go to a quiet place where we can be alone and get some rest." Jesus and his disciples got into a boat to cross the Sea of Galilee, but many people saw them leaving. The people traveled by foot and they ran ahead of Jesus. When Jesus and his disciples got to the shore, the people were already there waiting for them. Jesus saw the crowd and he cared about them because they were like sheep who needed a shepherd. So Jesus taught the people many things about God's kingdom, and he healed people who were sick. By this time, it was late in the day. Jesus' disciples came to him and said, "We are out in the middle of nowhere, and it's getting late. Tell the people to go away so they can go to the farms and villages to buy themselves something to eat." But Jesus said, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." Jesus' disciples were confused. "We can't feed this many people," they said. "It would cost a whole year's pay to buy enough bread for them to eat," Philip said. Jesus asked, "How many loaves of bread do you have? Go look." Jesus' disciple Andrew said, "A boy here has 5 loaves and 2 fish, but what good will that do for so many people?" Jesus told the disciples to instruct everyone to sit down. So all the people sat down in big groups on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish. He looked up to heaven, and then he blessed the bread. He broke it into pieces and gave it to the disciples. He also divided up the fish. The disciples passed out the food to the people, and everyone ate until they were full. Then Jesus told the disciples to collect any leftover food. The disciples collected 12 baskets full of pieces of bread and fish. Jesus fed about 5,000 men that day, plus women and children. By feeding the 5,000, Jesus provided for the physical needs of the crowd. The next day, Jesus called himself the bread of life. Only Jesus is able to satisfy our souls forever by providing forgiveness, peace with God, and eternal life.
Hi there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Autumn from Tulsa, Oklahoma asks,
If Jesus meets our needs, why do some people not have enough to eat?
Autumn, that's a fantastic question, a difficult one, because we know that God has promised to meet needs, but at times we see people who, maybe are homeless or who are hungry, and we have to ask, how do these kind of align? Well, let me kind of answer this a little bit because it's a really challenging one, but let me kind of speak to a couple ideas that are baked into this question. The first thing is this: we have to differentiate between what is a want and a need. I think sometimes that's kind of a problem, that we assume that wants are actually needs, and they're not. And God does not promise to give us our wants all the time, just our needs. So that's the first part. The second part is this, that we have to look at this over the long term. There may be somebody who goes without a meal and is hungry, and we can say, well, God's not meeting that person's needs, right? But then God provides for that need the next day and they have food to eat. So you have to look at the longer term as well. Another aspect is this, that God has promised to meet needs and he chooses to use the church to meet a lot of those needs. So a lot of this should cause us to care deeply about stepping in to other people's lives and recognizing there are people who are hungry in our towns. And God has given us resources to help meet those needs. Are we being faithful? Are we giving generously? Are we serving? Are we spending time helping at a soup kitchen, for example, that is there to help meet the needs of people who don't have money right now? And so there are a lot of things going on here in terms of those practical needs. But the bigger idea here, the idea that we can be a little bit more clear on is this. The greatest need we have is not food or a place to live. The greatest need we have is Jesus. And God has completely met that need by giving us Jesus to provide salvation for us when we trust in him. That is our greatest need, and that need is available for anyone who calls on him. And so we have to remember that as well. As we seek to meet the physical needs of people, the greater thing we need to do is make sure we are stepping in to share Christ so their greater spiritual need can be met. So here's a question back for you to consider. What needs will you trust Jesus to meet?
Whether cruising down highways in some of the world's largest cities or bumping along dirt roads to get to hard-to-reach villages, a missionary's daily commute can look very different from typical transportation in America. Here are some of the ways missionaries get around the world. Boats. In the Amazon jungle, dugout canoes facilitate trade and maintain communication between villages and cities. One journey can last 3 days or 3 weeks. Nevertheless, it is the only mode of transportation to further the gospel, said a missionary in Brazil. Metros. Light rail is commonplace in commutes for missionaries in the world's megacities. Metros are usually crowded, so riding the metro can be an exercise in letting go of personal space. Trains. In some locations, people spend days on the train to reach their destination. As missionaries roll across the countryside, children play with newfound friends, people swap stories, and the conductor sells ice cream. In India, the railroad is one of the country's most efficient modes of transportation. Cars. Cars are popular among the middle and upper class in South Asia, but there are a few major differences when driving a car in these countries. Missionaries must master the skill of driving on the left side of the road. Some roads are full of ruts and potholes. During the rainy season, some villages are completely inaccessible for months at a time without a four-wheel drive vehicle, said a missionary in Southeast Asia. Buses. Until recently, owning a car was too expensive for most East Asians. For the lower and middle classes, buses are affordable and accessible. In Kenya, matatus are brightly colored buses or vans operated by private owners. These vehicles are decorated with bright colors and unique decorations to get the attention of potential customers. Trucks. Trucks are a common sight in sub-Saharan and North Africa. Some missionaries serve where seatbelts are only a suggestion, and riding in the back of a truck with 14 of your closest friends is an acceptable mode of transportation. Motorbikes. Motorbikes are a useful and inexpensive means of transportation. According to a worker in South Asia, motorbike drivers go anywhere on the road they want. Sidewalks, ditches, and in between cars. Another worker in Southeast Asia confessed, "Seeing multiple people on a scooter at once always makes me smile." Bicycles. Missionaries often have the opportunity to learn to balance groceries and sometimes kids as they ride through some of the biggest biking cities in the world. Missionaries in Europe say that as a result of biking, they've had conversations with other cyclists, and there has almost always been a chance to talk about Jesus. Animals. Some missionaries work with people who use more lively forms of transport, like donkeys or camels. Camels were created to survive with little water and food, making them a great choice in rugged, dry terrain, even if they do spit sometimes. Donkey carts can still be seen in many sub-Saharan African, Central Asian, and European villages. No matter the transportation, Missionaries all over the world pray that God will place people in the seat next to them who need to hear about Jesus.